A good Monday afternoon to you and yours, and welcome into the PHLY Phillies podcast. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Tyler Zulli here, Andrew Frazier as well. We are with you for the next half an hour, and I can't thank you enough for hanging out with us. So if you're here, whether it be via the live show on YouTube here at 1 o'clock, excellent. If you're going to watch back later, we thank you as well. You can get involved in the chat, no matter if it is the live chat or the conversation after the fact. You can also catch us on all of our streaming platforms such as Roku and Samsung. And of course, you can get the audio-only podcast throughout all of your streaming platforms. And that'll be up just a little bit after 1:30 today. We're with you for the next half an hour as the Phils win a third consecutive series and take down the LA Dodgers 2 out of 3 games to improve to 7-2 in the beginning of the regular season. Worthy 78, I will address the comment in just a second. Worthy says, playoffs, come on, man. They're in the first month of a very, very long season. Yeah, probably playoff preview was not the appropriate title for me to use, but I didn't really know exactly how to promote it. And what I mean by that is, and that's where we're going to start today, this series had juice to it. This series had some life. And yeah, it's games, right? 7, 8, and 9 in the course of a 162-game season. But this one felt more like a July, August, September game than it did an April series. It's two good teams, and it's two teams that I expect to make deep playoff runs. I mean, I think the Dodgers are probably the best team in baseball, and we can all agree on that. They're one of the deepest lineups and the deepest rosters that I've ever seen. And the Phillies are expected to be a playoff contender, and not just a playoff contender, but a deep playoff contender as well. And so what I mean by when I use the phrase playoff preview in that thumbnail graphic there was this had life to it this weekend. This was a series that people got up for. This was a series that was appointment TV. And I know, unfortunately, on Friday night, if you don't have Apple TV, you got got to go to a bar or go to a restaurant or something to watch the game. But this one had juice to it. And, I don't remember many series from April 4th to the 6th that felt like there was some serious life to it. But this one did, because it was two really, really good teams going at it. And the Phillies win 2 of 3. And they do it in 2 very different ways. On Friday night, Jesus Luzardo was excellent. And I can't speak highly enough about this guy. He's been so darn good in his first 2 starts. He's poised. He's in command. His strikeout rates are high. He gets, 12 strikeouts or 11 strikeouts, 12 strikeouts against the Nationals, and then comes in and faces a Dodgers lineup that is potent, but we do know they strike out a decent bit. And he's able to punch out a lot of hitters. He was excellent. And they win a game 3-2 that had a little bit of everything, right? Excellent starting pitching from both sides, because I thought Yoshinobu Yamamoto was good on Friday game as well. But it had a little bit of everything. And there was intrigue late. Jordan Romano comes in. We're going to talk about him a little bit later. And he comes in and really struggles. And the Phillies need a strike him out, throw him out double play that gets, originally called safe on the field, and then overturned to end the game. It was a really, really exciting, enjoyable 3-2 game. Because if you know anything about me, I love high-stakes, low-scoring games. And I know for some baseball fans or some fans of the game, it may not be the most exciting game in the world. You want to see offense. You want to see gaps, doubles. You want to see bases clearing, knocks. You want to see grand slams like you saw on Sunday's game that we'll get to in just a second. And you want to see offense. And I totally understand if that's how you view the game of baseball. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just like, I personally love pitcher's duels. I love games where the bullpen comes in the 7th after the starter gave you 6 really good innings, and you need to get the next 9 outs, and you're matching up, and your manager's thinking it's a little more of the chess match. And then you get the craziness of the end of the game, where in the top of the 8th, the Dodgers are threatening, and Shohei Ohtani gets thrown out trying to steal second to end the 8th. JT was excellent defensively on Friday night, and he throws out Shohei Ohtani to end the 8th. And then in the 9th, Romano comes in, and he gives up the double off the wall, or was it a home run? He gives up the I forget exactly which one it was, but he gives up runs, and it becomes 3-2. And there's a runner on first with the threat to potentially for the Dodgers to strike and tie this game. And Romano strikes out Max Muncy, and then JT throws down and throws out Chris Taylor, who was pinch running at the time. And it was just an unbelievably fun baseball game. Then the Phillies lose 3-1 on Saturday. I know a lot of people were up in arms about the Bryson Stott getting doubled off, and the reality of the situation was it was a hit and run where the Phillies were looking for a spark, and it was a hit and run situation, and he gets doubled off. And they make that 3-2. If the runner's not in motion and it's a sac fly, they make it 3-2. Maybe it's a different game. But the thought process was, with Kyle Schwarber running, you were trying to avoid, if he hits the ball on the ground, you're trying to avoid the double play. And then yesterday, back and forth action, Phillies win 8-7, Nick Castellanos grand slam, and there was a lot of tense moments late in the game. And once again, Jordan Romano is the guy that causes a lot of bullpen fits, but the Phillies are able to lock it down. Orion Kirkering comes into the game, shuts it down. Matt Strahm was excellent. Jose Alvarado gets the save, and they win 8-7. And they take this series, 2 out of 3 games. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about in the series was the plate discipline of this team. But before we do that, I just want to give a shout out. I already brought it up to Jesus Luzardo. I want to give a shout out to Cristopher Sanchez as well. We'll talk a little bit more about him later in the show if we have time. What he did and what this pitching staff did with Shohei Ohtani all series, I think I'm not going to say it's a blueprint, because Shohei Ohtani is one of the greatest hitters on the planet. He's one of the best players to ever walk the planet already in his career. But what they did was, especially with the 2 lefty starters, was make him uncomfortable by basically throwing in on his hands and throwing in up and in a lot. And we'll get to that in just a little bit. But the reason that the Phillies won yesterday, I think due in large part, was to the team's plate discipline. And that's something that I think has been really on display throughout the course of the season. Now, I know the conversation for a lot of the year has been they have struggled with starting pitching. They struggled against Mackenzie Gore on opening day. They struggled against against Mitchell Parker in the 3rd game. They struggled against German Marquez. They struggled for a while against Antonio Senzatella. They struggled against Roki Sasaki. The point is, we know that the game plan for the Phillies has been they've struggled against starters and have attacked bullpens. And what that has led to, I think, is some people's frustrations about maybe the first 5 or 6 innings of a game. But what I think has been maybe a little bit not so much, understood in those games, even when they're not producing runs against starters, is that their plate discipline has been much, much better. This is a team of a lot of free swinging hitters. And because of that, when you see a lot of guys that are free swinging hitters, sometimes that leads to high chase rates. Sometimes that leads to low out of zone contact rates. But the Phillies on Sunday, I think maybe more so than any other game that they've played, showed some incredible plate discipline. Tyler Glasnow didn't have his best command. Tyler Glasnow, and I think he battled the weather a little bit, but so did Cristopher Sanchez, and it didn't seem to impact him the way that it impacted Glasnow. Tyler Glasnow on 2+ innings yesterday threw 60 pitches. Any idea of how many strikes he threw? Because I knew it wasn't a lot, but when I saw the number, I was baffled. Tyler Glasnow threw 28 strikes yesterday on 60 pitches. He walked 5 guys, including walking the bases loaded before exiting the game. The Phillies as a whole yesterday walked 11 times. Now, 3 of those walks were against Luis Garcia, and they ended up not scoring with the bases loaded, which was unfortunate. But their plate discipline, I think, has been much better. He threw 28 strikes. And what the Phillies did was basically say, go ahead. Go ahead. Keep throwing pitches. I'm not taking the bat off my shoulder until you throw me strike 1. And you saw it. I think there was a portion of that inning where 10 of his first 12 pitches were balls. And Rafael Marchand didn't take the bat off of his shoulders. And was it Bryson Stott? I forget exactly who it was, but didn't take the bat off their shoulders. And then Trey Turner draws the walk. And then Nick Castellanos eventually comes in, and it was the bloop base hit from Bryce Harper. And then Nick Castellanos comes in and crushes the first pitch grand slam from Alex Vesia, who served him up a meatball. But this team just took an approach of throw me a strike. It almost felt like a little league game, right? Where like you have a little league pitcher who was struggling, and there's just an inherent take sign until that pitcher throws you strike one. And that's what the Phillies did. They basically said, Glasnow, throw me a strike. And he couldn't. His fastball location was bad. I think his landing spot, and I don't mean like the actual spot where he was like on the mound. I think he was landing poorly. I don't think he had any consistency in his landing spot. And it was forcing him to kind of like really muster some pitches a little bit. And I think he was overthrowing. And then he was just trying to place the ball. And that's what they did to him. They just said, we're going to sit here and we're going to take it. The Phillies as a whole, in their first 9 games, have walked 43 times. Now, 11 walks in one game will really bolster that number. But as a whole, they've walked 43 times in their first 9 games. That's 5th most across baseball. And I think, as I made mention a little bit earlier, the most surprising thing to me is how, as a collective unit, their chase rates have gone down. The Phillies lead Major League Baseball in chase rates through the first week and a half at 24.3%. If you would have told me that they were going to lead Major League Baseball through the first 3 series in chase rate, I would have told you were insane. Just because if that's the team that they are, and that's the team that we've seen in the postseason against the Diamondbacks. The Mets was a little bit better, but there was a lot of chase rate going on in that series as well. They're a full point better than the Chicago Cubs, who were second at 25.5%. And now, this could be due in part to the fact that they've seen the 7th most pitches in the zone at 50.5%, but they're doing a really good job of not chasing through the first 3 series. I'm going to give you a couple of players in particular whose chase rates have gone down in the first 3 series compared to what they were a season ago. Now, again, small sample size, 9 games over 162, and there is a chance that maybe some of these guys revert back to their norm a little bit. But Trey Turner is at 26.2%. He's down almost 7% from last year. Nick Castellanos is at 27.5%. He's down over 10% from last year. Bryson Stott is at 19%. He's down 9% from last year. And Edmundo Sosa is at 31%. He's down from 41%. Last year, he's down almost 10 percentage points over the first 3 series. They also have the 8th best whiff rate in baseball, 24.8%. That's a lot of percentages that I threw at you over the last minute and a half. But the point is, what the Phillies are doing is they're walking, they're not chasing nearly as much, and they're not whiffing a ton throughout the first 3 series of the year. And I know that their numbers have been bad against the majority of the starters, but the selectivity and the blueprint that they laid out against Tyler Glasnow yesterday, and what they laid out against, I think, with Jake Irvin in the National Series, what they did against Mitchell Parker in the National Series, where they were, even when they weren't scoring, they were accumulating base runners. I think Mitchell Parker gave up 7 hits, Jake Irvin gave up 7 hits, and Glasnow walked a ton of dudes. I think the blueprint that they're laying out, if they can sustain it, maybe not to the success level that they're doing to start the year, but if it's sustainable compared to what they did last year in terms of chase rates and out-of-zone contact rates and things like that, that's a huge boost to this team. Because what it forces you to do as an opposing pitcher is to come in the strike zone and throw pitches in the zone, especially in hitters' counts where you're going to see a lot of fastballs. You'll see some get-me-over breaking pitches. And that's where the team that right now is 6th in baseball at a 268 average is going to feast. That's where they're going to feast on pitching. You saw it with Alex Vesia. He threw a meatball to Nick Castellanos yesterday, and Castellanos turned on it and smoked it. And all of a sudden, it was a 6-2 ball game, and the Phillies really took advantage. Because when they're in the zone, we know the Phillies crush fastballs. And to this point, just one more number for you. The Phillies are 7th in average exit velocity through Major League Baseball, across Major League Baseball at just under 90 miles an hour, and they're 5th in hard hit percentage at 44.7. So even when the numbers aren't materializing for them, and yes, they've hit into some crucial double plays. There's been moments throughout the season where they've struggled with runners in scoring position. I know Kepler's hit into a couple, Schwarber hit into one. JT's hitting to 1, but they're hitting the ball hard, and they're doing a decent job of squaring the baseball up, and so the numbers are going to come against the starting pitching, and it's going to become inflated as they see more pitches and as their plate discipline gets more and more selective. So a lot to like over the first 9 games of the season, and rightfully so. They're 7-2, but I think specifically in this series, there was a lot to like against the Dodgers. Even if the first 2 games they ended up only scoring 4 runs, they have an outburst yesterday for 8. They end up scoring 12 over the 3 games. So a lot to like throughout the first 3 games, the first 3 series of the season. Let's pause for just a second here on the PHOI Phillies podcast, brought to you by Bet365, and let me tell you about some of our friends here at PHOI. All right, so the summer months are coming around, but before the summer months get here, we have to deal with the crap that we're dealing with today, which is dreary and overcast and rain. So if you're having any issues, for example, I know at my mom's house, she has a lot of problems with flooding in her basement. So if you have any flooding issues or you have leaky pipes, you have an air conditioning issue because summer months are coming and you want to get your air conditioner fixed before it's too late and you're in your house sweating because the AC isn't working. But if you've got any of those problems, let me tell you about my friends over at Ace Hardware, because you know that Ace Hardware is the place with the helpful hardware folks. But did you know that Ace Hardware is also the place with the helpful hardware home service team? That's right. They've got help for you in any one of those solutions. I am not a handy person. I also just have to delegate it. But if you own your own home, if you have any issues that can't be fixed by the people that you rent from, well, then you want to get in touch with Ace. I know that it's been cold the last couple of days, and this week's outlook is not great. It's more traditional early April weather, but the summer months are coming, and you want to get in front of all of your home fixes. Do it with my friends over at Ace, because they are bringing helpful home. The helpful that you love from the store can be delivered right to your front door. So visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project today. And while we're at it, and apparently I just entirely blanked and got rid of my entire sheet, let me tell you about saving money with our friends over at TrueMark Financial. Now, TrueMark is one of the best credit unions around, and the reason that is because they help you spring into savings, whatever your financial goal might be. Now, my personal financial goal right now is to save up for the inevitability of buying a home. As my family expands, we want to get out of our apartment and into owning a home. But if you're thinking about buying a house or taking a dream vacation, or you just want to save for that rainy day fun, TrueMark Financial Credit Union has the perfect savings account for you. They offer high-rate certificates and money market accounts to help your money grow faster and to work better for you. And the best thing about TrueMark is you're not just another name. You're not just another customer. They are going to know you by name, and they're going to help you out and personalize your account to help best fit your needs. Visit TrueMark.com for rates and to learn more. TrueMark Financial, federally insured by the NCUA, equal opportunity lender. Rates are subject to change. Welcome back to the PHOI Phillies podcast here on the PHOI network, and of course, via the All City network as well. We are brought to you by Bet365, where it's never ordinary at Bet365. All right. We talked a lot about the good throughout the first 20 minutes of the show. And by the way, I want to send a shout out to everybody who's in the chat real quickly. K-Red, Smy Guy, Tim A. If you could scroll up for me, Andrew, just a little bit. I saw Markel Futch, Jamie. Appreciate everybody for being in the chat. I know you were talking about the pitchers duels and things like that. Worthy 78. I appreciate all of you for being here. All right, we do have to get to the one potentially bad piece of what I've seen this weekend and what I've seen this season so far. And that's a guy the Phillies brought in to be a high-leverage reliever and potentially get a crack at being the closer, and that's Jordan Romano. $8.5 million for a one-year deal. And the one thing that was worrisome to me when they signed Romano was, would he bounce back from surgery? 2023 and 2022, he was an all-star. 2024 was a down year for him because of the elbow problems. The questions were, will the fastball velocity get back? Will he be the same pitcher or close to the same pitcher that we saw in Toronto over the course of his all-star seasons? And how long is it going to take Romano to bounce back? Well, the early returns have not been good. He's given up runs in just about every start, every appearance he's made. He's given up multiple runs in 3 appearances so far to date. And I think the big concern for me plays off of the command a little bit. I talked on Anthony's show today, who Andrew Frazier is the producer for. I talked a little bit on Anthony's show today about his inability to hold runners on, and that's something that drives me crazy. But I talked about that a lot, and it's something that we're going to talk about throughout the season. So the one thing I want to get to, yeah, me too, Jamie. I miss Jeff Hoffman a lot. I was a huge Jeff Hoffman proponent. I would have re-signed Jeff Hoffman. I understand why they didn't because of the multi-year deal. But the big thing for me that I've noticed from Jordan Romano over the first couple of appearances for him is his slider is really not effective. And so because I love this game and because I guess it's because of my job, I went back and I watched. Jordan Romano has thrown 51 sliders this year so far. It's 57% of the pitches that he's thrown. I went back and watched every single one of them this morning. And what I found was twofold. The first is he's not locating the slider nearly enough. And when you're throwing it as your primary pitch, as he has so far this season, you need to be able to spot that pitch, both in the zone and out of the zone. And what I've realized on those 51 pitches is he's not spotting it enough, and it's not turning over nearly enough, at least when he's throwing it for strikes. So here were the 2 things that I noticed from Jordan Romano's slider is when he's throwing it in the zone, it's not turning over at all. It's got a lot of like humpback slider feel to it. So he's throwing it for strikes, but he's throwing it and it's a hittable pitch. Now, more times than not, when he was throwing it for strikes, I've noticed he was throwing it behind in the count, and he was using it as a get-me-over type of slider. It's not effective enough when you're doing that, and it's not turning over. And you saw it yesterday when he gave up the opposite field hit in the 7th that played at a couple of runs. He tried to get it over in a count that was not in his favor, and it got crushed because he hung it. He ended up hanging the slider, and it got crushed to right center field, and it changed the dynamic of the game, at least in that particular inning. So he's not turning over on it when he's throwing it in the zone. And the only time that he is turning over on it, he seems to be bouncing it. He seems to be throwing it in uncompetitive spots. The times that he's turning over on it and he's getting that horizontal like frisbee action, it's down in the zone or it's out. You know, he's throwing it to right-handed hitters and he's trying to get them to chase, which I want him to do, but he can only do that when he's ahead in the count. Because like we talked about with Alvarado's cutter, like we talked about with certain breaking balls, throughout the pitching staff, you're not going to get a lot of swing and miss. You're not going to get a lot of chase when hitters are ahead in the count. And when hitters are ahead in the count, they're going to sit fastball. They're going to sit pitches in the zone. And so I've noticed a lot that Romano is throwing the breaking ball, the one that he should be throwing for chase rate, the one that he should be throwing for swing and miss. He's turning over on that pitch, but he's doing it in like 2-0 counts. He's doing it in 2-1 counts. And guys are just going to sit on it and they're not going to go after it. And the ones that he is throwing over the plate, the ones that he's trying to throw for strikes, don't have that same bite to it, and it feels like it's got a little bit more humpback slider variation to it, and that's when it's going to end up getting hit. So to put it into perspective, opponents are hitting 300 on his slider this year. They have a 600 slugging percentage. He's only getting whiffs on 26% of his sliders, and he's also only putting away hitters on 18.8% of those pitches. For context, in his all-star years in 2022 and 23, he was getting whiffs at 38 and 33% and put away at 29 and 25%. And also his chase rate that I brought up is just 15.9% on the slider because he's falling behind in too many counts. He has only thrown 50% of his at-bats have generated first pitch strike. His career average is over 64%. And so he's falling behind too frequently. And then he has no ability to get back in the count because he's either then having to go to the fastball in the zone, which is having various degrees of success. But, I don't think he's throwing that for strikes nearly enough either. But the slider, which he's throwing more frequently, he's then having to throw that little get me over slider variation, which then is going to lead to hard hit contact because he's up in the zone. And so I guess for me, the best way to describe this is he's simply not getting ahead in enough counts. And I'm not saying he has to turn to his fastball more frequently, but I think he is throwing that first pitch slider uncompetitively too much. And then then he falls behind in counts, and then he's scrambling. So what do you do with Jordan Romano at this point? Well, we'll talk about that in just a second. But before we do that, I do want to pause, and we do have to tell you about some more of our friends here at PHOY. Let me tell you about our presenting sponsor one more time, our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 90 million users worldwide have gained access to Bet365 and the 780,000 live stream events that they have each and every year. And the reason that they do that is because Bet365 has pioneered live in-game betting. You can track the widest range of games and markets available for 78 sports worth of live betting. And of course, as games unfold, your live bet lines change all the time. So maybe your team jumped out to a lead and you think, I don't think they're going to hold this lead. Oh, you bet on the opposition, and the inverse can be true. Maybe your team fell behind early in a baseball game. Let's say they fell behind 4-0 or something, but you think, I think they can get on this pitcher. The live lines are going to be in your favor. You may get plus money. Jump on those live lines and get in on all the action. And of course, I've been telling you about the early payout scenarios across the NHL and the NBA. If your team goes up 20 points in any NBA game, you're going to cash out as a winner on your straight bet. Same can be said for the NHL. If your team's up 3 goals or more at any point, you will cash out on that straight bet as well. And breaking news, and this is continued for our friends over at Bet365. If you're a new customer, you can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. So all you have to do is create an account, use the promo code PHOY, deposit $10, and bet $5. And no matter if your bet wins or lose, you'll be credited $150 in bonus bets that you can use on future bets, spreads, totals, props, and so much more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And of course, let me tell you about our friends over at Empire Today, because listen, just like your favorite team wants and needs the home court and advantage and home field advantage, the home ice advantage, whatever it might be, your home needs the home floor advantage. And that's how Empire comes into play, because Empire Today are flooring experts. That is what they do. They have dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. You may have tried to buy flooring from one of the big box stores and you feel like you've been overwhelmed with wandering aisles aimlessly, and then someone who maybe doesn't work in flooring or is filling in tries to give you the best advice that they can, but they're not flooring experts. And that's where Empire comes into play, because they might have a flooring department in some of these big box stores, but every department is floor with our friends over at Empire Today. So why is Empire Today the best for you? Well, I told you that what they do, they live and breathe flooring, but they also have the ability to showcase your exact floor plan on their website. You just snap a picture, head on over to Empire Today, upload that photo, and you can see exactly how your floor is going to look in any capacity, whether you want hardwood or carpet or tile, whatever it might be. Empire has the best plans that will fit your need. And with Empire Today, you get clear upfront and all-inclusive pricing, and you can schedule your installation as soon as next day, because nobody wants to wait around for their new flooring. So schedule a free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home. PHOY listeners can receive a $350 discount when they use the promo code PHOY. Yes, you heard that right, $350 discount when you use the code PHOY. Restrictions do apply. Visit EmpireToday.com/PHOY for full details. Welcome back to the PHOY Phillies podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365, where it's never ordinary at Bet365. One final thing before we wrap up today's show. No Phillies game today, as they will be off. They'll be back at it tomorrow to start a 3-game set with the Atlanta Braves. Your probable pitchers for this weekend. It's going to be a good one for the Phils. They'll send Zach Wheeler to the mound on Tuesday. He'll be opposed by Chris Sale. And yes, I know Chris Sale has started the season a little underwhelming with his 5 ERA, but it'll be a good pitching matchup nonetheless. Tomorrow, that'll be the game. And then on Wednesday, it will be Taijuan Walker, who had an excellent start for the Phils against the Colorado Rockies. He'll go up against Grant Holmes. And then on Thursday to wrap up the series. This is the one that I'm really excited, is Jesus Luzardo, who's 2-0 in his first 2 starts with the Phillies, going up against Spencer Schwellenbach, who I've been pretty well documenting on this show that I think is going to have a crazy good year. He's got 14 strikeouts through his first 2 starts. So that's the 3-game set with the Atlanta Braves beginning tomorrow. All right, one final thing I did want to bring up. What is the role of Jordan Romano moving forward? Romano has been a high-leverage guy throughout his career, and I think through the first 2.5 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever it's been, Rob Thomson wanted to use him in high-leverage situations. I think that for the foreseeable future, those right-handed high-leverage situations are probably going to go to Orion Kerkering, at least for the foreseeable future. I think Romano is going to get lower leverage situations. He might pitch into the 6th. He might pitch in the 7th. But if you have a high leverage 7th inning or into the 8th inning where you're going to go to a right-handed reliever, I think those situations will call for Orion Kerkering more than they will for Romano over the next couple of weeks, at least until they see if he can right himself a little bit. And then don't forget, Matt Strahm has the ability to pitch against right-handed hitters. He doesn't have the best stuff in the world. He throws 91, 92, doesn't really have a wipeout slider, but he's got guts. He's got tenacity, and he's willing to pitch to both sides of the plate. Now, he's really good against lefties. He's really tough against lefties, but he doesn't shy away from pitching against right-handed hitters either. So I think Rob Thomson probably will turn to Strahm in some of those situations as well. So I think for the foreseeable future, Romano will slot into the situations, the right-handed situations in between Jose Ruiz, who's pitched pretty well so far, I think. His stuff's been pretty good, and Orion Kerkering, until he's proven that he can take responsibility for those situations. Listen, you're paying the guy $8.5 million. He's going to pitch. But I think for right now, your best course of action when you get into the latter stages of the game, if you need a right-handed situation, they're going to turn to Orion Kerkering. So we'll see how that unfolds this week against the Braves and then later against the Cardinals, who, by the way, my goodness, the Cardinals have been smashing the baseball to start the year. I think they lead the league in team batting average. The problem is their starting pitching has stunk. They're 4-5, despite the fact that over the course of the last couple of games, they've scored 9, lost 13-9. They scored 7, lost 18-7. They scored 5, got swept out by the Red Sox, despite the fact that they scored 20 runs in 3 games. And then over the course of a couple other games this season so far, they dropped an 8 spot. That was in spring training. They dropped a 5 spot on the Twins, a 5 spot on the Twins, a 9 spot on the Twins, 4 in a loss, 7 in a loss, and 12 in a win. This team's scoring a ton of runs. It's just their starting pitching stinks right now, which, I mean, if any of us could have told you that, right? The Cardinals starting rotation is not very good. But they are going to slug. And so I'm interested to see how the Phillies pitching staff handles them over the weekend. But first, it's the Atlanta Braves, and they'll be at it tomorrow night. Again, Wheeler Sale tomorrow will be must-watch TV. And then I think the best pitching matchup of the series is Luzardo and Schwellenbach. So we'll be back at it on Friday live to break down the Braves series and to look ahead to the St. Louis Cardinals series. The next couple of days, we'll have some videos for you breaking down the Braves series and looking ahead at that and taking a look at some of the other news and notes around the Phillies and Major League Baseball as a whole. We'll talk about Cristopher Sanchez tomorrow. I didn't get a chance to do it today, but Cristopher Sanchez and the Phillies pitching staff did an excellent job with Shohei Ohtani this weekend, and we'll talk more about that probably tomorrow. But big thank you to everybody in the chat for hanging out with us over this half an hour. It sure does go by fast. Big thank you to Andrew Frazier for producing today's show. A couple of videos for you over the next couple of days, and we'll be back live on Friday from 1 to 2 to break down the Braves series and the Cardinal series. So we'll chat with you live again on Friday right here on the PHOI Phillies podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.